Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica Imperialis and to today's video. Today is going to be another top 5 video starting off 2018 with 2 top 5s because, well, I can. So, this is something that I've been meaning to do for a very long time and actually got reminded to do by accident by a commenter quite recently. So, in a very old top 5, pretty much the second one I think I ever did, I did my top 5 favourite Space Marine characters. And I pretty much deliberately excluded the Horus Heresy-era from that because I didn't know enough about the Horus Heresy-era characters, which is why I then went back and reduxed my Primarch top 5 a while ago. So now that I've done my Legion series and I've looked at basically everything that I think I can learn about the big players in the Horus Heresy, sure, you didn't see it all in the Legion series, but a lot of it you did, and I researched a lot of other characters during that series. I feel like it's fair that I give those heroes of the 31st millennium, heroes and villains, I suppose, a bit of a look. So today's going to be my top 5 favourite Horus Heresy era characters. The only 2 rules I'm going to apply are as follows. 1, no Primarchs, because that would be completely unfair. That also extends to the Emperor. In fact, we're just going to limit this to the Space Marines. So this is my top 5 favourite Heresy era Space Marine characters, I suppose, because there are some really cool non-Space Marine characters like Tactica, Malkador the Sigillite's pretty awesome, obviously, and they could easily get onto a top 5 everybody list, but then you start having to include, well, why don't you include the Emperor, why don't you include the Primarchs, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to limit myself to the Legiones Astartes. I'm also going to limit myself to 1 per Legion. Now, that's mainly to stop any of my Legion biases creeping in, because I want to give every Legion a fair crack at the whip. I don't think it would have happened that I was going to have 2 from 1 Legion on the list, but I'd limit myself to 1 per Legion just to be fair. So that's everything you need to know. We're going to have a quick honourable mention before we get into the number 5 spot, but make sure to leave me your list in the comments below. I'd be very intrigued to see what you have to say. So without any further ado, let's do the honourable mention, and then we'll start the top 5 Horus Heresy era Space Marine characters. Okay, our honourable mention for this list. This is like my de facto number 6, I suppose. And that is going to be Sigismund, first captain of the Imperial 5th Legion. Part of the reason that Sigismund is here is because the Black Templars are really awesome. I really, really like the Black Templars. So Sigismund gets plus points for founding the Black Templars and for creating their aesthetic, their whole ways and means of doing things. So bonus points to Sigismund for that. Also, he may well have been the best fighter amongst the Loyalists. There are a couple of people who are sort of touted as the best of the best. We'll get to one of them later in this list, and another is Abaddon. Abaddon, Sigismund, and a couple of others are sort of touted as the best of the best of the best in a fight. And Sigismund may well have been the best of the Loyalists, if not the best of them all. This is a man who could fight Angron and not completely get annihilated. He frequently sparred with Khan, who, as we know, is an absolute murdering machine these days, and even in the Great Crusade era, was an extremely prolific combatant, and he could fight Angron. Even if he didn't win, even if he would have still lost horribly in an actual combat situation, he was able to duel with Angron. That says a lot about how well respected Sigismund was in a fight. And the reason he doesn't make the list is pretty much because he had a coward moment. I'm not going to criticize him for his belief in the Imperial Creed and the whole thing like that, but it's what he did after his conversation with Tactica. What he basically did was said, I don't want to go to Istvan because it will kill me. He was told by Keeler that he could have a cold, forgotten death in space and be completely forgotten, or an eternity of war. And he pretty much took the coward's way out, took the latter choice, and asked Dawn, please don't send me to Istvan. As it is, he never got to Istvan, so he would have died at Fal, rather than at Istvan, but you get the point. And Dawn was not pleased. Sigismund still went to Mars and got his job done on Mars, which has to be commended, but the fact that he would choose his own life over his duty, which I know it gives him some character and personality, and I respect his choice, but when you're getting super, super picky, like you have to, because the list of characters for the Legiones Astartes in the Great Crusade Horus Heresy era is very, very long. And while I love Sigismund and I love the Black Templars and I love everything about them, really, with a couple of exceptions, that moment just kept Sigismund off the list because it's not choosing the valorous route that will, maybe benefit the Legion the most. He did it for personal reasons. It wasn't for the good of the Legion. It wasn't for Dawn. It wasn't for the war effort. It was because he was scared. And that just keeps Sigismund off the list. And I was umming and ahhing about whether to put him at 5 or whether to put him at 6. But the number 5 spot I have I have pretty much nothing bad to say about. I just like less than the ones on the rest of the list. Sigismund I actually have a critique for. So, apologies. Although, again, final point, after the Heresy, because I'm not really looking much past the Heresy in this list, after the Heresy, after he found the Black Templars, he was able to still fight Abaddon to pretty much a standstill over Dratnian. So, yeah, fair point to Sigismund. So he is my honourable mention for this list. That is Sigismund of the Imperial Fist. Let us move on now to the number 5 spot. Okay, starting us off-ish. At the number 5 spot, we have Nathaniel Garrow, 7th Captain of the Death Guard and leader of the Knights Errant. The main reason Garrow is here is the Knights Errant, because the Knights Errant are awesome. Tylos Rubio, Mace of Aaron, another entry on this list that we'll get to later, and many more Knights Errant were incredibly powerful and badass and have to be commended. I could easily award this spot to the entirety of the Knights Errant, because the entirety of the Knights Errant are a bunch of badasses. Particularly, as I've said, Tylos Rubio, Mace of Aaron, and other individuals maybe like Felzeros, Balthazar Cathuri, and the other founders of the Grey Knights. But I'm giving this spot to Garrow because, well, Garrow's pretty awesome, although he's not actually the highest ranked Knight Errant on the list. We'll get to those a little later. But Garrow is here for setting up the Knights Errant, for going out, getting these people, because these missions that he went on were not easy. Going right into the heart of Calth to get Rubio, basically dealing with a sort of murder mystery, who's the traitor, who's not the traitor, to recruit Mace of Aaron, going to Istvan alone, pretty much, well, with help, to go to that virus-bombed exterminatus practically hell that must have been Istvan 3, to go and get Loken. Garrow is worthy of a lot of respect for that. But it's not just that. The Death Guard were one of the heaviest fallers of them all, if you look at probably raw numbers. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers of how many were sent from the World Eaters to Istvan 3, of the Emperor's Children, of the Death Guard, of the Sons of Horus. But because of the way the Death Guard was set up, where the Terran contingent, who were predominantly the Loyalist contingent, were marginalised and the Barbarous contingent went with Mortarion and fell, it's credit to Garrow that he never wavered from his traditions and from his belief in the Great Crusade and in the Emperor, to the point that he actually, as far as I'm aware, became a believer in the Imperial Creed, although that may or may not be true. He definitely went looking for Euphrati Keeler, but whether he was a follower of the God Emperor, I'm not 100%. So I have to give Garrow a lot of credit for standing loyal despite everything that was going on. And the Flight of the Eisenstein, seriously flexible adaptation. Gotta say, that was really quick thinking to eject the warp drive and then to be able to survive through all of that and deal with the first ever Plague Marines. That must have been pretty impressive. And all of that stuff. And as well, as much as he didn't really adapt to the new Death Guard, he kept to the ways of the old Dusk Raiders. He wasn't stupid, and he was still able to work within the confines of the Death Guard, sharing Mortarion's cups, for example, and despite being literally interrogated and tried to work over to the traitor side by Mortarion himself, Garrow didn't move an inch. So, full credit to Garrow. You are my number 5 spot on the list, so let us move on now to number 4. Coming in at the number 4 spot, we have a traitor, a member of the Night Lord's Legion, the Prince of Crows, leader of the Atramentar, Jago Sevatarian, better known as Sevatar. Oh, Sevatar. I'll fully admit there is some Night Lords bias here because I really like the Night Lords, but Sevatar is one of those individuals who, like Sigismund, like Abaddon, was one of the best fighters. And the best part about Sevatar that makes him probably even more worthy of credit, perhaps, is that he was a psycho. And he didn't even need it. There's being good and there's cheating to be good, and there's being good despite having the ability to cheat. He didn't need to cheat to be the best fighter pretty much of everybody. Maybe not the best of the best of the best, but on the same tier as your Sigismunds, your Eidolons, your Abaddons. Those sorts of names are mentioned in the same breath as Sevatar. And Sevatar could have been even better with psychic powers, or could have been on that level without being as good thanks to psychic powers. He just didn't need it. That is worthy of credit. And he's not just a warrior. He's first captain, and he's a badass, yes, but he's also a very able commander. During the war with the Dark Angels, whilst Curse was rendered comatose or was otherwise unable to lead the Night Lords, it was Sevatar who led the Legion and then allowed them to splinter and become the Night Lords we know today. That wasn't Curse's call, that was Sevatar's call to splinter the Legion. And it was a really good call because it kept them alive for a bit longer. Admittedly, there is a small problem in the fact that we don't really know what happened to Sevatar at the end. This is something that's also true of Garrow, where his sort of fate drops off. We don't quite know what happened to him because he can't become a Grey Knight, and he might have joined the Inquisition, but we don't know. We also don't know what happened to Sevatar, because there's a lot of intrigue regarding Sevatar and whether maybe Curse killed him. Or was he killed somewhere else? Did he survive? Did he change his name? Did he flee? We don't know. We don't know what happened to Sevatar. And the reason I talk about Curse in the same sentence is his gauntlets. For those who don't know, when Curse and Sevatar met with Lionel Johnson and his guard to discuss bringing an end to, I think it was the Thramas Crusade, Sevatar was wearing red gauntlets, which is not typical for Night Lords because they have midnight blue armor. Those were Sinner's gauntlets that indicated pretty much that Curse was going to kill him for his crimes. And we don't know what those crimes were. We don't know why Sevatar was still first captain despite wearing these gauntlets of effectively being put on death row. We don't know. There's so much intrigue there, and that's why Sevatar's fate is an intriguing one. I really hope we get to see Sevatar's fate in future, just to bring his old arc to an end, or to allow him to escape into the annals of history. I'm very intrigued. So, admittedly, Sevatar is probably above Garrow due to his fighting skill and the fact that I like Night Lords more than I like Death Guard, but Sevatar is at my number 4 spot. And I also need to make the point that Death to the False Emperor, that infamous quote of Chaos, comes from Jago Sevatarian, just in case you weren't aware. So that's the number 4 spot. Let's move on now to number 3. Coming in at the number 3 spot, we have another Knight Errant. This one drawn from the Lunar Wolves, because he's a loyalist and thus he's not a member of the Sons of Horus, he's a member of the Lunar Wolves. And his name is Garviel Loken. Garviel Loken, the protagonist of the very first Horus Heresy novels, and the ultimate survivor. Seriously, how much does it take to kill this guy? Seriously. He was virus bombed on Istvan 3 and didn't die. He fought Abaddon 1v1, who was already stated several times one of the best fighters in the Legiones Astartes, and didn't die. He then took another massive bombardment from the Vengeful Spirit and the rest of the traitor fleet as they left Istvan 3, and he didn't die. He was then able to hold his own in a fight against Garrow, Rubio, and Varen, who were all powerful members of the Knights Errant, one of whom is a very powerful Psyker, and he didn't die, although he had gone insane at that moment, so I don't know whether to give him a positive or a negative for that. And then he was able to go into the Vengeful Spirit, come face to face with Horus, watch his pretty much closest ally, because he's another son of Horus, get killed in front of him, and be offered to rejoin the Legion, and was able to put his duty to the Emperor and the Imperium above his duty and loyalty to Horus. That is serious balls. And I have to give Loken so much credit for surviving all of that. And his loyalty to never give up, never turn, never surrender, seriously, that's impressive. Admittedly, Loken doesn't come any higher on the list despite being the ultimate badass for a couple of reasons. The first one is the fact that he did kind of lose his mind on Istvan, because he thought he was the last loyalist, and it took some serious work from Garrow and co to convince him to come on board. I can't hold that against him. I mean, if everyone else in Istvan was dead, then he's kind of inclined to think that way, but has to be mentioned. And the other thing is, before the mission to the Vengeful Spirit, there was a whole series of drama regarding having to talk to the soul of Tarek Torgadin because he was having a melancholy moment. And then there was the whole incident with, I don't think he was in love with Mercedes Oliton, the Remembrancer, but it kind of comes across that way as far as it can for a Space Marine. So that needs to be pointed out, but unlike with some other characters, I feel like that gives him a measure of, what's the word? A measure of personality. It's not like Sigismund, who was literally just a coward with his incident. This is Loken having actual feelings and character depth. And that's something the Loyalist Astartes don't always get. Because with the traitors especially, you get to see their motives, what drives them. You get to see both sides of them. We'll get onto that in the next pick. But you don't always see it with the Loyalists. And Loken, you get to see that side. It's like, where he has his concerns, he has his worries. And you don't always see it, and that has to be commended. Plus, he did see something going wrong on Davin with the whole Serpent Lodge, so fair play for realising something was awry, but didn't really change anything in the grand scheme. So, Gabriel Loken comes in at number 3, a consummate badass, and I think it's very hard to not have him near the top of any Heresy-era Astartes list. But he's not at number 1 or at number 2, so let's find out who is at number 2. And coming in at the number 2 spot, we have another traitor. And this one is Kharn. Oh, Kharn. Kharn is fantastic in the Heresy. I'm not as keen on 40k Kharn, because 40k Kharn is a complete psychopath. And you get to see how he becomes that complete psychopath through the event of the burning of Scalathrax and Terror and all of those sorts of things. But in the run-up to his complete sanity shatter moment, Kharn is amazing. This is the one person in the entirety of the Legiones Astartes, in the entirety of the Warhounds, who could talk down and talk round Angron. Seriously, that takes some serious credit. You have to give credit to Kharn for being able to convince Angron to come on board, which, when you consider he was the most senior commander left in the Legion at the time, might not have been the smartest thing to go and try and do. But you have to give him so much credit for being able to talk Angron around and keep Angron going in the right direction. Because it could have been so easy for Angron to go completely off the rails. I mean, Angron kind of did go completely off the rails, but at the same time, he had Kharn balancing him out ever so slightly, even with the Butcher's Nails in play, and you have to credit Kharn with that. You also have to consider that Kharn, much like Sevatar, was a very capable commander. He wasn't just a badass with a chain axe. He was a commander. When Angron was out of action on Armatura, it was Kharn who took command of the World Eaters Legion. When Angron abandoned the World Eaters after the Battle of Terror and Kharn was resurrected by Khorne and shenanigans, it was Kharn who the World Eaters looked to for leadership and guidance, and that led to Scalathrax and that led to problems. Plus, you have to consider that he's a bit of a tragic hero, and I know that sounds weird given what Kharn became, but the way Kharn became the way he is has to be considered a little bit, well, harsh and unfair, because Kharn was sort of going in the wrong direction, but he had Argel Tal. Argel Tal was balancing Kharn out, and the two of them were amazing together. And you know what happened? Erebus assassinated Argel Tal to send Kharn completely insane and to the service of Khorne. Screw Erebus. Again. I hate Erebus. I really do hate Erebus. So Erebus, screw you. You caused this. Plus you have to also consider that when Kharn went to Prospero after the events, I believe, of was it Armatura where Argel Tal was killed? It was some point during the Shadow Crusade. I forget exactly which world right now. But Kharn then went to Prospero. Why did he go to Prospero? Well, he wanted to get a cure. He wanted this complete insanity that was starting to take over him cured. He didn't want that. And he found a sorcerer. Admittedly, he couldn't find the knowledge he wanted because it had been destroyed in the burning of Prospero. But the sorcerer said, I can help you. Let me help you. And Kharn was going to let him. And then the red mist descended and he battered him to a pulp. And that is why I like Kharn over other characters like, say, Ahriman or Typhus or Lucius, the other members of the Big Four, you might say. Lucius I really dislike. Lucius is just a prat. I don't like Lucius. Typhus was completely self-serving, knew exactly what he was doing, and as much as you have to give him credit for the same reason you have to give Loken credit for surviving everything he did, you have to say Typhus is not as cool as Loken or Kharn. Ahriman was the other one I was considering. He's not on this list, partly for reasons of who's in the number 1 spot. But Ahriman, you can follow his goals, and you have to say Ahriman is very cool. Ahriman is in my top 10. I have to put Ahriman in my top 10, but he's not in my top 5, and Khan is. Because Ahriman, his goals are noble, and his reasoning is sound, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit just out of fear. It's not always noble. It's not always for the greater good, although it kind of is, kind of isn't. It's out of fear. That's what drives him. And his quest for knowledge today, very interesting, and I love modern Ahriman as a character, but there's just a few things with Ahriman that mean I can't put him as high on the list as I put Khan. So Khan is my number 2 pick, and because I've kind of half spoiled it already, let's move on to the number 1 spot. And completing our list at the number 1 spot, my favourite 30k era Space Marine character, surprising nobody is 1000 Sun. But it's not Ahriman. So who is it? Well, it's Revuel Arvida. Revuel Arvida is the consummate badass. Seriously, where do I begin? This is an individual who, pre-rubric, pre all those shenanigans, was able to hold back the flesh change and keep it in check and not lose himself for 4 years. 4! That's ridiculous. I don't think a single member of the 1000 Suns held the flesh change in check for very long. No one. Because they all just died. And Revuel kept it in check for 4 damn years. Whilst fighting with the White Scars, bear in mind, and using his psychic power, which might well have been having an effect on the flesh change, we don't know. That is incredible. No one does that. Huge credit. Second thing is, after the incident with Dark Glass, where the Chief Stormseer of the White Scars died, who was in charge of getting the White Scars, the entirety of their legion pretty much, bear in mind, that was still alive, back to Terra? Oh, it was Revuel Arvida. Why? Because he was the most trusted of the Psychos left with the 5th Legion. In fact, he was so trusted that Tactica Yesuge, who was that Chief Stormseer, wanted to induct him into the White Scars. He was that good. He wasn't a Chogoris native, he was probably from Prospero, and they wanted to induct him into their legion despite him being a total outsider. How much respect do you have to win to do that from the White Scars? I mean, sure, they're not the most xenophobic to other worlds you've ever seen. I mean, if you'd have managed to do it with the Death Guard or with someone like that, then even more credit where credit is due. But still, that is incredibly impressive given the way the White Scars operate, that they were willing to, 1, induct Arvida into their ranks, and 2, trust him above all others, not one of their Stormseers, him, to get them home via the webway after Tactica Yesuge sacrificed himself. Seriously, how powerful must he be? Well, I'll tell you how powerful. As soon as the White Scars got back, the Flesh Chain sort of got the better of Arvida, who was waiting for him, Malcador the Sigillite. What did Malcador the Sigillite do? Fuse him with a Shard of Magnus because he was that damn powerful, and he didn't just turn into a Shard of Magnus, he was able to sort of hold his own and create an entirely new being. Who was that new being? Janus, the first Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights. How powerful must that individual have been? Sure, Janus is not exactly Revuel Arvida, so whatever Janus does, I can't give full credit to Arvida for, but the fact that Arvida was able to not completely get ruined by the creation of Janus, even if it did take the intervention of Jaghatai Khan to make it happen, is still very, very impressive. Plus, you have to consider, well, the reason why Revuel Arvida was a sergeant and not a captain. He was too damn picky and curious, and I have to respect that, alright. I like the 1000 Suns, and I love the idea of just wanting to know everything about the universe. I mean, look at what I do for my main series. I do lore. This is what I do. I want to know everything. And Revuel Arvida was not allowed to become a captain because he insisted on knowing everything. It was seen as a lack of respect rather than an actual thing that was worthy of respect. But the fact that someone wants to know everything and will go to any lengths to get that knowledge, well, look what Ahriman's doing. but Revulavida was doing sort of the same sort of thing, I think. It's kind of hard to know, but I have to give Revulavida credit for that because that plays into my nature as someone who wants to know everything about this universe. It's just what I like. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Revulavida is my top pick. He is my #1 favourite Heresy-era Space Marine character. And I know it's a really long list of individuals you could put on this list. There are individuals such as Azkalon, who I haven't mentioned. Shadrach Medusan was in the original draft of this list. Ahriman, Typhus, Lucius, Abaddon, and many, many, many more. The rest of the Knights Errant, I could be here for such a long time trying to catalogue all the potential individuals you could put on this list. So I'm sure your list is going to be very interesting. I mean, maybe you're someone who loves the Fallen Angels and that has Luther and Cypher. I mean, I respect Cypher, but I don't think I quite have him on my list. You see what I mean? There are so many options. So please, let me know your list in the comments below. I'd be very interested to see what you have to say and justify it for me. Because it's lovely to see people's lists and get people's ideas, but I always want to know why. Why is it in that order? Why is it this individual and not this individual that I've got on my list? Because I've given my reason. So give me yours. I'm very intrigued to see what you have to say. And of course, let you know what you thought of my list and any future top 5s you would like me to cover in the future. For now though, thank you all for watching. This has been Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.